British Spy Stories. Season 3. Official Denial. Episode 13. Laravel and Hans leave the hotel and walk across Budapest. When they arrive at the Kovals, Nadia is in party mood. The flat is vast. Cream walls and a cream suite have been juxtaposed with vases of yellow and orange lilies. There is a cocktail bar of gold, white and red bottles in the corner, with a hired bar girl. Hans and Laravel ask for margaritas, then walk over to a group with Elena and Nadia in it. Standing next to Elena is the man they have come to meet, Victor Melnick, Agent Overbeck. Taras strides over to the group. "A toast," he says, "to Victor here for saving my life." "It was nothing," says Victor quietly. "What do you mean, Taras?" says Elena. "We were out on some business the other night and got into a bit of difficulty. But Victor saved the day, got us out of there." He raises his glass of champagne to Overbeck, who returns the gesture. Half an hour later, Laravel manoeuvres around the group and touches Victor on the elbow, and he turns to her. "We haven't met properly, Victor. I'm Sabrina. Elena has said so much about you," says Laravel. "What do you do?" "I used to work in government, civil servant. Nothing special," he says. "What about you?" "I came here with Dan, that's him there." She points to Hans. "We used to live in Berlin. I worked in a bar." "Why did you come to Budapest?" "Dan's left the army and does security," she says. "There's a big demand for it around here. People get scared, I guess." "Maybe." "Why did you come here?" she says. "I'd had enough. Enough of my life in Kiev. I'd been there too long." "Then you met Elena?" "Yeah, she changed my life. I would still be at the second desk along, in a dusty office on the third floor of the Secretariat of Finance, working out how much subsidy the farmers in the Donbass are due." "And now you work for Taras?" says Laravel. "Not really. We went out for one evening meeting. I drove him because of his leg." "What happened then? He said you saved his life." "It was nothing," says Overbeck. "Taras is a demon for a good story." "He seems grateful anyway," she says. "Excuse me a moment. I need the bathroom." "It's over by the front door." Laravel had been waiting for someone to go into the toilet by the front door to start her plan. She walks to Nadia. "Have you got another bathroom, Nadia?" "Go in the ensuite," says Nadia. "Off the bedroom, that door there." She points to near the end of a corridor that runs along the back of the flat, and Laravel walks into the bedroom, then into the adjoining bathroom. She emerges a few minutes later. As she walks through the bedroom, she reaches one hand down under her dress and pulls out one of the microbugs taped to her leg. She looks around for a suitable place to fit the device and chooses one of the bedside lights. Laravel takes the tiny electronic box in her fingers and slides it under the bottom of the rim of the light. She checks to see that it can't be seen from all angles, and even lies on the bed to check the sightlines. Exactly at that moment, the bedroom door opens and Taras walks in. "Comfortable?" he says. "Sorry, my boyfriend wanted one of these beds, so I wondered what they were like." Taras sits down next to her on the bed. "You and I haven't met properly," he says. "Nad was telling me about you and your bloke." He puts his hand on her leg. "What did she tell you?" "That he's ex-army." "That's right." She stands up to move his hand off her thigh. "He'd kill you as soon as look at you, my Dan." She gives Taras a big smile, which he thinks is genuine. She moves back towards the door that leads to the rest of the flat. "We should get to know each other," he says. "I'm sure we will." "Come and sit back down." "I'm fine, thanks." What do you do? Says Taras.
Bar work, mostly,
she says.
I did in Berlin, where we lived.
Taras pushes himself up from the bed and walks over to her. I like a woman who knows her drink. Laravel ignores the comment. Then there's a moment of silence. What were you really doing lying on my bed? He says.
Like I said.
We should have dinner.
I'm very busy.
Don't be like that. Laravel looks at him. She says no more, turns the handle, and walks out. She goes and finds Hans in the sitting room.
One down,
she says, close to his ear.
In the bedroom.
Okay.
And I spoke to Overbeck,
she says. And?
It was just chat. He said what we already guessed. He was bored with his life in Kiev and wanted to get away. Elena came along just at the right time.
Yeah, lucky, says Hans. As the evening moves on, Hans and Laravel manage to hide more listening devices in various places in the flat. Only the main sitting room is now missing, an MI6 bug. We need a diversion, says Hans to her, as the clock in the main room shows nearly midnight. She looks at him for a second, narrowing her eyes slightly, as she thinks about what she can do.
I know,
is all she says, before walking over to the bar and getting a long drink. She attaches herself to a group of people and joins in the conversation. After 5 minutes, Hans is in the kitchen getting food and hears a woman scream. He hurries out to see what's going on. Laravel, despite her sling, is pushing one of the women who had been in the group and shouting at her, so that everyone else is watching them. Hans pushes his hand into his pocket and pulls out the last bug. He had decided earlier in the evening to put it under the coffee table in the middle of the room, so it will pick up conversations in the whole space. He goes down on one knee, pulls his shoelace out of its bow and starts to tie it again. Hans looks up and sees Taras watching him. He stands up again and copies how the other people are reacting to the fight. Nadia is between them now, trying to separate the women. Taras turns away from watching Hans and back to the women arguing. There are only a few seconds left to place the device before the fascination with a kerfuffle ebbs away. Hans hesitates and looks at Taras, but this time the man is focused on the rumpus. Hans drops on his haunches, places the bug on one fingertip, and grabs the table with both hands, as though steadying himself. He pushes the device up to the underside of the table and presses it home. He is not sure if it's stuck properly, but he has no time to check. He stands up and only then hurries over to Laravel as the fight finishes.
A bit bloody late now,
says Nadia to him. She doesn't need my protection, he says. Hans takes Laravel over to the sofas, and they pretend to be having a couple-type conversation that no one else can hear.
Planted okay?
She says to him. He nods and inspects a cut she has over one eyebrow.
All right, don't fuss.
We need to talk to Overbeck, he says. Where is he?
Over there with Elena. He doesn't look very comfortable. He might leave soon.
Let's do a pincer movement. You take Elena away, and I'll talk to him. They walk over to separate Overbeck from his girlfriend. You smoke, Victor, says Hans, holding up a packet of cigarettes. The doctors have told me not to, he says, but fuck 'em. Come on. We'll need our coats, says Hans. The two men collect their coats from the hooks by the front door, slide open the window to the balcony that overlooks the gardens, and step outside. Hans closes the glass back into place, cutting off the sound from the room. Not a party animal, says Hans. holding a match in his cupped hands to light Overbeck's cigarette.
Not so much. Sabrina and I have come from Berlin. She said earlier, why come here? I heard there were work opportunities.
What do you do?
Security,
says Hans.
Ex-1st Panzer German Army.
Overbeck takes a long drag.
I wanted to talk to you, Victor.
The other man has been looking out at the view, but now turns his eyes to Hans. The clouds of breath from Hans's words roll away into the night, above Hungary. There's a moment of silence that seems like more.
I'm with MI6.
Overbeck blinks rapidly for a few seconds, taking in the statement. Hans continues.
We've come to help you.
Overbeck explores the other man's face before saying anything.
Help me? We're worried about you.
How did you find me? Says Victor.
We're spies, is what we do.
He leaves a pause, then says,
What do you want, Victor?
The man takes a deep breath out.
To stop. We can get you to the West.
Victor smiles.
This is the West. Haven't you been listening?
To London, then,
or wherever you want,
says Hans.
We'll look after you. MI6 doesn't drop its assets like the KGB used to.
Do you know what the prison term is in Ukraine for espionage? Says Overbeck. Hans shakes his head and takes a draw on his cigarette. 25 years. I'd be nearly 70.
You don't need to think about it. We can give you a new life, new face if you want.
I've always lived in ex-Soviet countries. It's part of me.
What does Elena want to do?
Says Hans. Be with me.
Would she relocate with you?
Maybe, says Victor.
Why don't you ask her?
Overbeck doesn't reply.
Can we meet up?
Says Hans.
Come and talk to us. We've got an active unit here in Budapest.
That sounds like a state secret.
We trust you, Victor. We're at the Bluebecker Hotel. Call in any time. Ask for Daniel Mayer at reception. Or call me.
Hans gives Victor a plain white card, with only a mobile phone number on it. Overbeck says nothing and takes the card, but keeps his gaze on the rooftops of the city in front of them. Hans pulls at the sliding door and goes back inside. He asks the bar girl for a beer, and feels he wants to leave the place soon, as their mission is over for the night. Nadia walks up to him and orders a beer for herself.
Enjoying yourself?
She says, putting her hand on his waist.
Yeah, great party, he says. Thanks for the invitation.
It's the best way to meet people,
she says to him. He takes a swig of beer, wondering where this is going.
How long have you and Sabrina been together?
A couple of years,
says Hans.
You bored with her yet?
He laughs and shakes his head in disbelief.
What?
She touches him again.
We're very happy.
We all need side gigs.
Do we?
Says Hans.
Is that why you want your husband dead?
Keep your voice down.
She looks around to see if anyone else is near them, but no one is.
Why don't you take me to dinner?
She says.
See it as an additional payment for the job you're going to do for me.
The money will be enough, but thank you.
You're not getting off that easily, Dan.
She opens her eyes wide.
I'll work on you. Stay there a second.
Nadia asks the bar girl for a pen, then turns back to Hans.
This is my number,
she says, and writes her mobile number on his hand. Then walks away.